Good evening. Hope all of you are doing well. Maseches Yevamos daf Samech Gimel. We're starting 3 lines into the middle width lines on Samech Beis and Mid Beis, and I actually stopped to drop short yesterday. The last words for yesterday was Amar Rav Masna Halacha Rabbi Yoshua. What was that talking about? A machlokas between our Mishnah and the Shita of Rabbi Yoshua, that our Mishnah seemed to say that there's no mitzvah of pru or vu if you've already been yosei with whatever the minimum quote of children is. However, Rabbi Yoshua is of the opinion that if you had children when you were younger and you were already yosei, you should still have more children when one is older. So that really should have been read with yesterday's daf, but I did not realize it was there, even though I had prepared it. So now we can go on to today's topic. Today is a Gemara that speaks a lot about marriage and some of the famous Gemaras, Matzah Motzei, and a lot of other colored commentary, and that's going to bring us all the way to the Mishnah on the top of Samach Daled Amud Aleph, and then we'll pause. So the Gemara says, Amar Rav Tanchuma, Amar Rav Chanilai, Kol Adam She'eino Isha. If a person is not yet married, Shari below Simcha, below Bracha, below Tova. He's lacking in these areas of Simcha, Bracha, and Tova. Below Simcha, how do we know? Simcha and Bayis are in the same pasuk. Below Bracha, that this person may lack Bracha. Bracha el Beisecha. Same idea. Bracha and Bayis in the same pasuk. Below Tova, Lo Tov Hayos Ha'adam Levado. And b'ma'arav and Eretz Yisrael Amrei, they said as well, below Torah, below Choma. How do we know below Torah, below Choma? Below Torah, d'chsiv, because the pasuk says, Ha'im ein ezrasi bi v'sushia nidchem imeni. There isn't anyone supporting me, referencing a spouse. And v'sushia, the chachma, the wisdom of the Torah, is pushed away from me. So we see that Torah could be lacking. And what about below Choma? Last of the middle width lines on Samach Beis and Mid Beis, d'chsiv, that a woman surrounds a man. Rabbi Bar Ula Amar below Shalom. What's the pasuk that indicates that there's no Shalom? So that's the pasuk that says that your noveh, your house, will not have Shalom in it. Omar Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, if a man knows of his wife that she is a Yarei Shamayim, ve'eno pokta, and he's not available to her as it relates to the mitzvah of Ona, if she is showing a cheshek that she would like to be a Meshamish Mitasa and he does not provide to her, so then Nikra Chote, Shneimar, because of the pasuk we saw before. So this Shita Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi has a different understanding of the pasuk from a line above. Shneimar v'yadati shalom alecha. So that's the mitzvah of Ona. It's a mitzvah saseh shel Torah that a husband has to be available to his wife a requisite number of times. There's a discussion in Simon Reish Mem and Orach Chaim what that means. Once a week, twice a week, depends on what a person's profession is. Lamaisa, the minhag of Bnei Torah is the minhag. What Bnei Torah do is Erev Shabbos. Erev Shabbos is called Onas Talmidei Chachamim. That is not Erev Shabbos, Leil Shabbos. Good. If the husband's going out of town, then the mitzvah of Ona kicks in at that time, and they should be together. It says the Gemara, that's not the Mari Makam. It's learned from somewhere else. That when a husband is going out of town, so then a woman may well show desire to be with him, and then he has a mitzvah to be with her that before he leaves. So it says the Gemara, which Mari Makam is right? Is it the pasuk of Yadati Shalom Alecha, or is it the pasuk of Eli Sheikh Teshukaseh? Says the Gemara, why do we have two sources? Amar Rav Yosef, Lo Nitzurcha Ela Samach Levesta. Fascinating. What is the din of a vesas? The din of a vesas. I'm so happy to have a Hilchos Nida topic, like a real regular non-Yevamos, but still something that we're familiar with. A vesas is one potential anticipated time when a woman would expect her period. We are makbid in halacha to keep 3 of these times. We keep an interval set of days. Let's say a woman's period is 29 days apart. So then on that 29th day from when she last had her period, then we keep that. The second is calendaric. If it's Aleph Tishrei, then it's Aleph Tishrei. So there are a couple that we're makbid on. And there's the third one called the Ona Beinanis, is that we assume that a woman will get her period every 30 days. So these are the 3 times that we're careful that toward the end of a woman's clean cycle, that a husband and wife should not be together. Vestos are derabanan. So there's a din derabanan. They cannot be together on those days. Yet what do we see over here? What we see over here is that if a person's going out of town, that trumps the prohibition, which is only rabbinic, of being together during that vesas. So let's say that a husband's going out of town on day 29, and day 29 from her last period, she's still tahora. And day 29 is a day when they anticipate that she may get her period, because that's what she got last time. So normally we'd say that it's a vesas, you cannot be together. But says the Gemara, the reason why we have 2 sources here is because here there's a mitzvah for them to be together. The kama, how much time is this? Amarava. Ona. It's only one part of the day. It's either all day or all night, meaning all daytime hours or all nighttime hours. We are makbid and halacha that The proper way to keep Hilchos Nida, Hilchos Vestos, is that when a couple reaches that time when a woman anticipates she may get her period again on any of those 3 days of either the interval set of days called Vestas Adilug or Vestas Achodesh, the date of the month, all the different versions of them, we're actually makbid on 24 hours. That we're not together on those times. You can still touch, you just can't have Tashma Shemitah. Anyways, that's what the Gemara says, it's an Ona. Bahani Mili, when do we say that there's a trump card of him going out of town and therefore they should be together even against a Vesas? Says the Gemara, that's only l'dvar rishus if you're traveling stam. However, aval l'dvar mitzvah, if a person is traveling for a mitzvah, then mitridi, then we're afraid he's going to get distracted. Which way? We don't know if he's going to get distracted and not fulfill the mitzvah of Ona or not fulfill the mitzvah for which he's traveling. Rashi quotes both possibilities. We don't know which one. The point is that it's distracting. So if he's traveling for regular business and it's not a mitzvah per se, you have a meeting, you work for KPMG, you have a meeting in New York. So then that's where the mitzvah of Ona would override the Vesas. Masha'in can, if a person is going to be Masada Kedushin, you're going for a bris, whatever the case may be, that's not going to override a Vesas. Tanu Rabbanan, famous Gemara, ha'oves es ishto kigufo, if a person loves his wife as he loves himself, v'hamechabda yoser migufo, yet he treats her with respect greater than himself, and as well, hamadrich banav uvnosa b'derech yeshara, that a person guides their children in the straight path of the Torah, v'amasian samach lepirkan, and one who marries off their children when they are close to the age of becoming mature, the ages of puberty, all of akal omer v'yadat ki shlama alecha, that's when you will see peace in your home when you check off all of those boxes. Ha'oev es shechena, of one who loves their neighbors, v'amekarev es krova, of one who keeps their family close, v'anose es basachoso, one who marries their sister's daughter. Rashi, bottom of the page, Giague Adam Rabin Alachos or Yosi Min Echa. You're better off marrying your sister's child because typically people have a warmer relationship with their sister. And he'll treat his wife, who's his sister's daughter, better potentially than he would had it been his brother's daughter. So if you do that, and top of Samach Gimel Amanal, one who lends a coin to a poor person when they need it, all of Akasiv Omer, that is when the pasuk would indicate Oz Tikra v'Hashem Ya'anati Shava by Yomer Hineni. Then HaKadosh Baruch Hu will hear your prayers and he will be present for you. Siman, we have the following Siman. We're going to see a lot of very short snippets of Gemara. What did I tabulate here? 10, about 30 over the course of the next Amud. Each are very short. Some are a little bit more thematic, but each are very short. And this is the acronym to remember them. Siman, Isha, the Karka.
What about marrying a niece there? I mean, is that something that we've seen in Jewish history?
In Jewish history, for sure, but not in recent Jewish history, to my knowledge. I don't think that happens. It's mutter, but nobody does it. I'm not holding it. But cousins had it. That happens. That I don't know anybody, but it happens. Some
Cousins,
yeah, that's not. Yep, that's the din. So the siman is Isha v'karka ezer zos shtei habrachos tagre pachte. Of course, some of these are actually words, and really, it's just the point is that it's an acronym. Let's jump right in. 4 lines down. Samach Gimel Amanal from Rabbi Lazar. Kol adam she'eno isha eno adam. That's ridiculous. How can you say that? A blot ago, we said that about a goy, that a goy is not an adam. So what does it mean, adam here? So I spoke to Rabbi Robinson about this Gemara. He said it might just be that as we as humans aim for a shleimus adam, one of the higher, loftier levels, so then that is a din that requires an isha. Remember, blazer kol adam she'en lo karka. If you don't have any investments in real estate, eno adam. The arts is spread. You don't have any real estate, like me. I don't have any real. I mean, I have my house, but that's about it. So then, eno adam. What does it mean that HaKadosh Baruch Hu made Chava an Ezer, one who helps, Kenegdo, opposite him? Of course, seemingly two opposite implications. Zacha, if you were Zocha to a good marriage, then Ozraso, then she'll be helpful to him. Lo Zacha, but if not, then Kenegdo, then they'll be opposing one another. Rika Amre, another version of the same thing. Rabbi Lazar Rami, there are two psukim that don't seem to agree with one another. It's not really two psukim, it's how to read one pasuk. Ksiv Kenegdo, but Vikarin and Kenigdo, which is Kenegdo is opposite, and Kenigdo is corresponding to in a positive way. So the Gemara answers the same way. Zacha Kenegdo lo Zacha Menagadsto. That if you are Zocha, you'll have a good marriage, and she'll be on your side. And if you're not Zocha, then she'll be your opposing factor. Ashkeche Rabbi Yossi Eliyahu. That doesn't happen every day. Rabbi Yossi bumped into Eliyahu. Navi Amarle. Ksiv Eselo Ezer. Bame Isha Uzarto Adam. How is it that a wife is helpful to a man? Amar le, he said, Adam maybe chitin. A man's going to go out in the field. He's going to plow. He's going to bring in a bushel of wheat. Chitin koses. You think he'd choose the wheat like that? No, it turns into bread somehow. Somebody's got to make it into bread. Pishtan, you bring in some flax. You can't wear the flax the way it's made out of the tree. It has to be hammered, turned into thread. V'chule. Pishtan lovesh. Lo nimtzeis me'ira einav uma'amidaso al raglav. Don't we find that a woman brings a brightness to the eyes of a man and stands him up on his feet? There's what to be said. This whole Gemara has to be al derech drush. This is Eliyahu Navi. What he's just being practical. Shalom bayis. She cooks in the kitchen. There's got to be more going on here. Says the Gemara, what does this mean? Zos hapam, this time. Now, this time, Chava, what do you mean this time? She's the first woman that he was exposed to. Says the Gemara, that's absolutely true. Melamed, he didn't know what was going on in the world, so he was with all the animals in Gan Eden. Melamed shaba adam al kol behema v'chai v'lo niskara daita shaba al Chava, that he had tashmish amita with all of the animals and all of the larger animals and smaller animals, but he didn't have niskara daita. He didn't calm him, didn't make him feel a sense of sipuk at shaba al Chava until he was with Chava. That's why it says zos hapam, this time. Amar Rabbi Lazar, "My dechsiv nibruchu b'cha kol mishpachos haaretz." Amar leKadosh Baruch Hu leAvram, "Shtei berechos tovos yeshli lahavrich bach." Lahavrich is a word from Hilchos Shabbos. It's grafting. It's taking parts from one tree, cutting it on an angle, and kind of connecting them together so that they can now grow newly together. So what are these two brechos that you're going to be adding to the tree, quote unquote, of the Jewish people? Rus HaMoaviyah, these two women need to be woven in because of their descendants. The rest of the pasuk, Kol mishpachos ha'adama, afilim mishpachos hadaras ba'adama, ein misparchos el b'shvil Yisrael. That even the families that do live on the ground, their bracha is because of Klal Yisrael. Kol goyei haaretz, afilu sfinus habos migalia la'aspamia. That even if you have people who are traveling from Galia to Aspamia is Spain, ein misparchos el b'shvil Yisrael, they too are the beneficiaries of whatever that when the Jews are doing things that are good. Says the Gemara halfway down, second of the wide lines of Amar Rabbi Lazar, Asidim kol ba'ali umani yoshiamdu ala karka. Everyone who has a regular job, quote unquote, will end up working the land. Shene'emar, as the pasuk says, v'yardu me'an yosam, they will go down from their ships. Kol tosei mashot, those who hold on to oars. Malachim, the sailors. Kol chov layam, the ones who travel the waters. Just lost my spot. Sorry. They're going to be on the land. There is no more lowly a profession than working the ground and being a farmer. How do we know? The pasuk says that they went down from wherever they were from their ships to the ground. So an implication that there's nothing more lowly than this type of profession of being a farmer. There were certain types of cabbage that were actually planted the wrong way. Normally, the way to capitalize, this is what the Meforshim write, the way to capitalize on a field is that if you have a large rectangle of field like this, so it doesn't make sense to make the furrows this way, because every time the animal turns around, you lose space. So it makes much more sense to do this way, and you'll get more out of the, I don't know if that's actually, it's got to be true because there's fewer turns. So you'll actually get more part of the ground. So that's what the Gemara is saying over here, a little bit more than halfway down on Samech Gimel. So he says that because it was planted widthwise, which is not a good idea. So Amar Le, he was quote unquote talking to the fields. Even if you had been planted the long way, with the furrows were long instead of wide, there are still businesses that are more profitable than yours. It's not the business to be in. Rav was walking amongst some stalks of probably corn, and they were brushing up against one another. They were kind of blowing in the wind. Amar Lahu inaifes, oh, go ahead, make your sounds. Still, this is like marketing. This is like business advice. Don't go into this. It's not a profitable field. The profit margins are too low. Amar Rava says, if you make 100 zuz at work, every day you can eat meat and wine. But But if you have $100, 100 zuz investments in the ground, milcha v'chafura, you'll be eating things with salt, and you'll be eating things that are chafura, just some unripe vegetation, not a good business to be in. You're going to end up sleeping on the ground to protect your ground, and you're going to end up getting in fights with other people around your property, not the business to be in. Amar Papa Zareya v'lo tazbin. Rashi explains you should plant your own grain, and you should not buy other grains from the market. And even if they are the same price, it doesn't matter. Hani mevarchan, the ones that you planted have a greater bracha. So if you want to plant your own vegetables in the backyard, you can go to the green thumb in the back. Dr. Karesh has been doing that since we were little kids. Strawberries, pumpkins, whatever, green beans, I don't know, a whole bunch of things. A lot of tomatoes. So there, the Gemara says, even if they're equal in price, doesn't matter. It's going to have more of a bracha because you did it than if you buy them. Zavin lo tezel, you should sell things, but don't make yourself poor. Hani mili b'yistarki, this is talking about carpets, not just carpets. The Meforshim explained is talking about anything that you don't actually need to live. Aval glima, but the coat that's on your back and any other clothing that you typically wear. Lo misramile, you may never get good clothing again. That's not what you should sell. But if you want to live a simple life, sell the extra furniture in the house. If you're doing construction in your house, Tom, if you have a hole in your wall, low tashbits, don't make that hole larger. We had this in our basement. We had someone put a basketball through the drywall. So the person who came in, they didn't just fix the drywall. They cut out a larger square from stud to stud and they put in a new piece of drywall. So that's exactly this. Tom, fill in the hole, below tashbits, and don't cut out a larger piece. But if you don't have a choice, shapotz, you may have to do that. But then velotiv, don't start doing construction. Shekola osek bebinyan mismaskein. A person who goes into construction will lose their shorts financially. It is not a good idea. Everybody loses money in construction, and anyone who's done construction knows that's true. Quotes, Zavinara, you should jump into a real estate business, but Maso Nasiv Itza, you should be patient in the decision of who to marry. Nachiz Darga Nasiv Itza, you should marry a woman who's a drop lower than you. Sagdarga Bechor Shushvina, but when you're picking friends, you should pick ones that are a little bit higher than you. Amar Belazar, Amar Avina. It means, in regards to the wife, it means that you don't want to pick someone who's going to rule over you, right? There's certainly historically, and even in reality, women run the house. But just the way that it's saying is you don't want someone who's going to be more dominant than you. But when it comes to friends, you want friends that draw you up. And so that's what. I don't know. That's not like when you're like telling people in dating, you're like, marry someone a little more stark than you. We have a little bit of a different parlance. Now, I don't know how that plays into Chazal. I don't know. Amar Belazar, Amar Avino, Ein Paranas Bal Olam El Bishvil Yisrael. When bad things happen in the world, it's because of the Jews. Shneimar, Hichrati Goyim Nishamu Pinosam Hecharafti Chutzosam. Uchsiv Amarti Achtir Eositi Krimu. Sorry, you should just please take Musa. There's bad things happening to the Goyim in the world, but that's on us. We have an achrayas to be on top of our game. Rav have a miftar me Reb Chia. When Rav was living in Reb Chia, Amar Le Rachmana Litzlach. Kadosh Baruch Hu should save you mimidi de kasha mimosa, from things that are worse than death. Says the Gemara, Umi kamidi de kasha mimosa. Says the Gemara, yes, there is something worse than death. Nafak dak ve'ashkach. He found the pasuk. Umotzi ani mar mimaves es ha'isha. Wow. Okay, that's what the pasuk says. Rav have a kometzar l'debisu. His wife used to drive him crazy. Rav's wife used to drive him nuts. Ki amar le avidi li tulufchi. He'd say, "Can you please make me some lentils?" She'd always do. She was a contrarian. Avdale chimtzi. She'd always make beans. Chimtzi. If he requested beans, avdale tulufchi. Then all of a sudden. Then she'd keep doing the opposite. When Chia got older, all of a sudden things started to turn around. Your mother got better at this. So then the son said, no, I've been whispering in her ear the exact opposite of whatever you wanted. And then she made whatever you thought it was, whatever you wanted it to be. So Amarle, he said aloud, he was kind of like a krechts, and he says, the things that your kids are sometimes a little smarter than you. They came up with a great solution. They went over to the child went over to the mother and said, Dad really wants the beans. She's like, forget that. I'm making the other thing. So the kid learned the system. However, the father said back to the son, Ad lo tabidachi. Rav says to his son, you should really not be doing that. That's not right. You should not be teaching your children these things if they're dishonest. That is incorrect. Reb Chia have a kometzar l'debisu. Reb Chia's wife was also not so good to him, but he responded in a very positive way. Ki have a mashkach, meaning when he would find a little something to buy her, something that he knew she'd like. He'd wrap it up in his handkerchief, and she'd give it to him as a gift. So Amar le Rav said to him, well, what's going on here? You're buying her gifts from the store. Well, come tsar le lamar. She's driving you crazy. Why would you do that? So he says, Amar le tayenu shemagadlos panenu. Isn't it enough that our wives raise our children? And they also give us an opportunity to lessen and to remove ourselves from chet. Rashi, here who are avera, because a person's pas besalo, they have the opportunity for tashmish amita. This is a crazy piece of Gemara. This should be a bumper sticker, a very bad bumper sticker. What does the pasuk mean when it says this is the father Rabbi Yehuda talking to his son Rabbi Yitzchak. Amar le, the son says Kigon man. Who is this like? And he says, like your mother. Kigon imcha, your mother is motzi mar mimo. This is not good. This is not this should not. There were censors over the years to cut out pieces of the Gemara, like for like other religions. Some of these should have been stricken from the record, But the Gemara actually shows a stira because Rabbi Yehuda, much as he was negative in this frame, he was positive in a different one, 3 lines down, Samach Gimel and Beis. V'amasne le Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yitzchak Brei, another motzei koratz ruach el nishta rishona. Person's going to get a tremendous amount of sipuk from the first woman that they married. Shenemar yehi mekorcha baruch v'samech meishes neurecha. V'amar le, the son said kigon mine, said kigon imcha. So which one is it? Is this woman very difficult or is this woman not very difficult? Which one is it? Says the Gemara, no, maskift kifa, she has an anger problem, but she'll calm down pretty quickly. So she has this duality to her, like most human beings have. What is considered to be a woman who is a bad wife? She prepares a whole table for him to eat. She also prepares a whole mouthful of words to share with him and criticism. Or Rava Amar Makashale Taka, she prepares a table, and then she turns her back on him. That when a person marries a woman, his sins have been clogged up. Meforshim explained this because when a person before they're married, so then they have all of these piercings in their shmir mitzvos because they have so many yetzer haros. But when a person is married, then we can fill in the gaps. Mispakikin, we can fill in the gaps because we no longer have those types of yetzer haros. Shenemar matzah isha matzah tov v'yafek ritzon me'Hashem, and v'yafek is from the language of mispakikin. Says the Gemara 3 lines into the middle with lines. When a man would get married in Eretz Yisrael, they'd say, hopefully not in the first couple of days of marriage, matzah or motzeh, what kind of relationship do you have? Do you say matzah dechsiv matzah isha matzah tov? Do you have a good marriage? Or motzeh dechsiv motzeh neimar min bavas esa isha? Okay, so that's a famous Gemara that people talk about during Shabbat Brachos, and they always give the kala the bracha of matzah. What is chus? So that's really not the context of the Gemara. The context is not that she's awesome. The context is that we don't know what she is, so we're asking the chassid. So when we give these divrei Torah, sometimes they're a little al derech hadrush, a little bit nicer than saying what the Gemara actually says. Amar Rava isha ra mitzvah l'garsha. If you're married to an evil woman, then it's a mitzvah to divorce her. D'chsiv, as the pasuk says, Garesh leitz, you should divorce the scorner. V'yetze madon, v'yishbos din v'kalon. And when you get rid of her, when you're divorced, v'yishbos, what will stop? Din, judgment, v'kalon, and all of the mockery. So that's what the Gemara says. If you have a woman who has a bad wife and she has a very high ksuba, it's not easy to divorce her. Your best intervention is to marry another woman in addition to her. You're better off bringing another wife where she's going to have to straighten up her game as wife number one, instead of using thorns. It's an indirect, circuitous route in order to solve the problem of his first wife not being so good. The second wife is a solution. A woman who is evil is like the day of the storm. There's dripping water on the days of the storm. And she is similar. She's a shaveh to a woman who is not a good wife. The polarity of what a woman could be as a wife. How do we know how great a woman is? In fact, the pasuk is speaking directly about what it means, about marriage. If that's what the pasuk is talking about, then kama tova isha tova shakasu mishamcha. We have a pasuk that's actually praising her. And if the pasuk is a homily, it's not talking about marriage. It's talking about Talmud Torah. Then beautiful. Then kama tova isha tova shator nimshalaba. Then you compared her to the Torah, which is also beautiful. So that's isha tova. However, kamara isha ra. How bad is a bad wife? And if this pasuk is literal, in fact, the pasuk is talking about marriage, then kamara isha rasha kasav megana, that the pasuk is speaking negatively about her. That's very bad. If the pasuk is a homily and really speaking about Gehenim, then kamara isha rasha Gehenim nimshalaba, that she was compared to Gehenim. Very, very bad. That's not good. What does the pasuk mean? Halfway down here, maybe rush or lo yuchlu latzeis mimena, an evil that you cannot get away from. This is a woman who has a very, very, very high number put into her ksuba. We've institutionalized the amount of money, Mosayim Zuz, that we put into a ksuba. So this doesn't really exactly play out as it would have back in the day. Nisanani Hashem biyadi lo chalkum. What does this pasuk mean? That Hashem put something in your hand that you cannot get away from. So different Amoraim learn this from different psukim. Some people learn this pasuk differently. Amru Zeshem is anosav tluim bekasba. These are people who live from check to mouth. What does it mean that your children will be given to another nation? it's a stepmother. It's sometimes a difficult relationship. But goy naval achisem, what does it mean that with a generation, not a generation, with a goy naval achisem, there's going to be anger? Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Chanan bar Abba Amar Rav zo isha rok suvas meruba. But not everybody agrees to this pshat. That's Rav Chanan. However, Rabbi Eliezer, Omer Elu Hatzedukim, V'cheinu Omer, Amar Naval Belibo in Elokim. So you see the word Naval in both places is talking about the Tzedukim. B'masnisa Tana Elu Anshe Barbaria, V'Anshe Martanai. These are terrible nations. Shemahalchen Arumin Bashuk. These are people who walk around undressed in the marketplace. She'ein Lecham Eshukatz U'Mesoav Lifnei Amakom Yoser Mimi Shemehalech B'Shuk Arum. For people who walk around naked, it's a very strong language. Ein lecha. There's nothing worse, nothing more disgusting, nothing more abominable than, I don't know if this is talking about like mamish naked.
It says limited without any significant clothing, no 28.
No
Where'd you
28.
bring that from?
David, that's from the editors.
From the editors, there's no name.
I mean,
What?
There's no quote.
I looked around to find out what the parameters were, because if what it's talking about is just
Fair
fritzas, then that's like every mall you go to is meshukatz and masoav. Every airport is meshukatz and masoav. If it's talking about mamish, no garments, okay, so there are limited places on earth where that's allowed, but it happens. It happens. Either way, it's not good. Rav Yochanan Amar Elu Chabarim. This pasuk that we read earlier was talking about Chabarim, which was a group of bad people. Amar Leila Rav Yochanan, a story took place. Asu Chabar leBavel. These terrible people are coming to Bavel. Shaga, he fell to his knees. Nafal, and he fell onto the floor. Amar Leila, to console him, they said, "Don't worry, Makabel Shochta. We could actually bribe them. They're willing to take our money." Taritz v'Yasuf. So he got back up and he said up. Gazru al Gimel. They gave us a gzeira for 3 areas. These Chabarim when they came to Bavel, and then Rav Yochanan responded, "You're right. Mipnei Gimel. We weren't good in these 3 areas." And some of the Meforshim right in the back, it was Mida Keneged Mida. We're not going to go into the details, but that's what some Meforshim say. What were the 3 things? Gazru al Habasr Mipnei Amatanos. We were given the consequence of not being able to eat meat because we weren't good with the matnos kahuna back in the day. Gazru al merchatzos. We were told not to use the bathhouses because people weren't going to the mikvah like they were supposed to be doing. People who were buried were exhumed. Because we showed an element of simcha on their holidays. You say you're walking around Macy's, you start singing the jingles, that's Yom Edom. That's not a day that we should be celebrating in any way, shape, and form. You want to give a happy holidays card to someone? Great. Don't write Merry Christmas there. That's not our holiday. That's not the way that it should be. I'm not making a full comparison. I don't know what the scope of Yom Edom is, but certainly it wasn't a good thing. And the consequence was that people were exhumed because of it. Not just you, but your forefathers, your ancestors as well. These are the people. This pasuk means that these were people who were unburied. Because of those who are alive, and in this particular case, because they were celebrating that day, or at least they were happy for people on that day, people were exhumed. The Rabbi Marmar, that you're similar to Doman, which is fecal matter to animal manure, that it's better to choose death over life. How do we understand the juxtaposition of these psukim? It's better if a person chooses a path of rishus for their whole life. It's actually better that they should die at an earlier age instead of continuing to sin and falling to a greater level of Gehenna. This is like the principle we have by the Ben Sora Rumora of Nidon al Shem Sofo. This is not for us to decide; it's for HaKadosh Baruch Hu to decide. Ben Sora Rumora lo hayv lo yihye. In this case as well, this is not for human beings to decide. We don't get to look at someone and say, "You're a Rasha, better you should die." That's not our job. HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs the world. But that's what the Gemara is saying: is that if a person has to choose to live a life as a Rasha or to live a life not at all, so the Gemara seems to posit that you're better off as it relates to the long haul, because this world is temporary and the next world is permanent. You're better off not living long in this world because you'll do more averas. That's why the Meforshim say, like, if you have an Isser Doraisa that you have to choose to do or not do, you have to give up every piece of property you own to not do that Isser Doraisa. By Mitzvah Saseh, so then the Mitzvah Saseh is Ad Chomesh. Ein Mevaz B'zen Ad Chomesh, that only up to 20% of your money. So let's say somebody says, I'm gonna pay me to not whatever. You're not allowed to put on tefillin today. So somebody puts a gun to your head and says, like, okay, I mean, I'm willing to not do it up to 20% of my wealth. I'll give you 20% of my wealth. Fine, whatever. Then now he says I want 25. Then halacha is your pater from that. Says the Gemara, Kasub B'Sefer Ben Sira. This book is not a book that we have anymore. There were multiple books called Ben Sira, but this was not the one that we have some pieces of, other than a little snippet. Huh? Not the Refuah one. Right. I didn't know it was called Ben Sira. I just know there's another book. But here the Gemara says, Isha tova matana tova labayla. A good wife is a gift to a husband. It's good for him to have her in an embrace. It's given to one who fears the Kadosh Baruch Hu. Isha ra tzaras labala. A woman who is evil is considered like tzaras. Mai takante. What should he do under the circumstances? Very simple. You got a problem, got a solution. If she's like tzaras, you should divorce her and heal yourself. A man who has a beautiful wife that is good for the husband, he will live double days. Some of the Meforshim say that's not true. He won't live double days. That's not correct. It's not like a bracha of like Arichus Yamim by Kibud Avaim and Shiluach Hakein. It's not correct. Some of the Meforshim explain that because he won't be doing, any averas in the area of Hirhure Avera, and she's saving him from violating other isurim, so he also earns the next world as well, which is the kiflaim. He gets the next world as well. You should not look at women who are Eshes Chain, who are beautiful women who are not your spouse. Pentilake bimsudasa, because you might get trapped in her net, in her cast net that will cause you to fail. Altat etzel baila limso chimo yain v'shechar. And if you know who her husband is, don't all of a sudden become friends with him, because ki b'soar isha yafe rabim hushchasu. With the simple description of a beautiful woman, many were destroyed. Ve'atzumim kol harugeha. Many are the people who were destroyed because of her. Rabim hayu pitzei rochel. Many were also destroyed by the pitzei rochel, by the men who sell perfume. We saw this in an earlier Gemara, that when a man is walking out of the home of a woman who sells perfume, so then it's easy to cross boundaries. In fact, the Rambam in Hilchos Yisur Bia quotes an Isser Derabanan to intentionally smell the perfume of a woman. Who knew? It's an Isser Derabanan, and it's not right, because it's a gorim. It causes a person to be Megarbi Yetzirah, and that's not right. Hamargilim l'dvar avera, people who are regularly involved in dvar avera, kimnitzotz mavir gacheletz. It's like a spark that can cause a flame by a coal. Kikaluv malay of, it is like a bird cage that's filled with birds. Kain batain malay mirma, their house, because they're following their Yetzer Hara, will be filled with mirma, will be filled with deceit. Al teitzer tzaras machar, a person should not stress over the stresses of tomorrow. Kilo teda ma yeled hayom, you have no idea what's even going to happen today. Shema machar bave einenu, maybe tomorrow will come and those stressors won't be there at all. So stop worrying about tomorrow. We don't even know what it's going to bring. Nimtza mitzar al ha'olam she'ein shelo. If a person does maintain their anxiety, so then they are seemingly anxious over something that doesn't really apply to them. You shouldn't have a lot of people in your home. This is a reference to people who you're not so close to. Same idea. You shouldn't bring the whole community to your house. There should be a lot of people who seek you out to give shalom aleichem, but you should only share your secrets with 1 in 1,000 people. You should be selective with who you share your life story with. Amar Ravasi, Ein ben David ba ad sheyichlu kol haneshamos shebeguf. We learned this the other day. The David HaMelech will not show up until all of the neshamos have left, quote, guf. Yes. Shenemar, and this is the pasuk we saw the other day, Ki ruach milefanai ya'atofu neshamos ani asisi. Those are the ones that have to come down to earth. That was the shita that we saw, according to the one who said that a person who had children, but the children died, they're still yotze b'mitzvah puravu, because at least the cholapachos, they took neshamos out of guf. Tanya, the Brisa writes 10 lines from the bottom. Samach Gimel Amud Beis. Tanya Belazar Omar Kol mi she'ein osek b'pirya v'rivya. Anyone who isn't actively involved in trying to have children, ki'ilu shofech damim. This language is picked up on by Maseches Shabbos. The Gemara Maseches Shabbos says, "Asakta b'pirya v'rivya." One of the 6 questions will be asked b'shas hadin. Did you try to have children in a halachically appropriate way? It doesn't mean you're going to be successful. Just means you have to make an attempt. So it says the Gemara, same language here. Anyone who's not in pursuit of the mitzvah of pirivya, then it's ki'ilu shofech dam. Shenamar shofech dam ha'adam, ba'adam damo yishafech. Uchsi basrei ba'atem peru urvu. Rabbi Yaakov omer ki'ilu mimayit hadmus. It's actually like you're minimizing the creator.
Heintige sugi and all the Gans news reports is that pasuk adam, referring to abortion.
Oh. And what you're saying that this is the Bar Makom?
Absolutely.
Shofech adam ha'adam, adam damo yishafech. Oh,
that's the classic. I believe that's the classic pasuk.
I just thought it was like not to be all recorded and everything, but like there has to be a line in the sand where it's murder and a line where it's not murder. So I think that's like, I don't know, I didn't know this was my makom. I've never seen it in this context. Yeah. Okay. We're gonna just move on, but yeah, it's too much of a hot button topic, and I don't want to get any of us in trouble. That's my makom. Yeah, thank you. That's good. I'm glad to know it. Rabbi Yaakov Omer ki'ilu b'maytadmus, because because the pasuk says Shneimar 6 lines from the bottom, keep it 7 l'kim asas adam uchsi basrei batem peru urvu. Ben Azai Omer, and this is interesting because Ben Azai was single. Ben Azai never married. Ben Azai Omer ki'ilu shofech damim u'maytadmus. Everybody starts like, coming from you, that's a little interesting. We'll talk about that in a minute. Shneimar batem peru urvu. So they all Amru lo Ben Azai, listen. We know you're a Talmud Chacham. Yesh no'eh doresh v'no'eh mekayim. Some people give a beautiful drasha and they keep the halacha beautifully. No'eh mekayim ve'ein doresh ve'ein no'eh doresh. Some people keep halacha beautifully, but they don't know how to learn. Ve'ata no'eh doresh ve'ein no'eh mekayim. I mean, you're like the last guy in the base medrash that. Why are you telling us what pshat is and minimizing the dmus of a Kadosh Baruch Hu? What am I supposed to do? That my soul, these are key words, the language is important. Not that I want to learn Torah. Nafshi chashka b'Torah. My nefesh is tethered with a cheshek to Torah. The world can move on without me having children. That's what Ben Azai says. So he says, I can still give a vort. You're right. I'm not being Mekayim mitzvah purva, but I'm just telling you that it's what he's saying. I'm just telling you, that's not me, but that is the right vort. The vort is correct, and you're right. I'm not Mekayim. Tanyida Rabbi Eliezer Omer Kol Mishein Osek B'Pereh V'Kilo Shovech Damish Nor Shovech Adam Adam V'Samech Lei V'Atem Peru Urvu. Same Mari Makom. Rabbi Eliezer Ben Azariah Omer Kilu M'Mayit Hadmusa. Just another brisa with very similar Mari Makom. Ben Azai Omer V'Chulei Amr Lo Ben Azai Yesh No Dorish V'Chulei. So Ben Azai is quoted twice in the same brisa, and they give the same shakla b'Torah. How could you say that? It's a beautiful drasha, but you don't keep the din. He says, what am I supposed to do? Nafshi chashka b'Torah. Taner Rabbanan, bottom line, Samach Gimel Lamed Beis. Uvenucha Yomar, when the Aron was put down, Shuva Hashem Rivavos Alfei Yisrael, that we wanted a Kadosh Baruch Hu to dwell at that time over Rivavos Alfei Yisrael. Rivavos Melamed, top of Samach Dal Amud Aleph, She'ein Hashchina Shor Ela Pachos Mishnei Alafim V'Shnei Rivavos Yisrael. Look at the pasuk. Rivavos is 2 Rivava, that's 20,000, and Alfei is minimum 2,000, that's 22,000. So the Shekhinah is only going to dwell when there's 22,000 people. If you're down by 1, so it's 21,999. Why? Because one guy made a decision he's not going to have a child. Doesn't it appear that this person who made the calculating decision of I'm not having kids, he decided he ruined it for everybody? Even worse. They didn't have children. They wouldn't have died. So this says the Gemara is the story of Nadav and Avihu, that if they would have had kids, they wouldn't have been punished. That this can cause for the Shekhinah to leave the Jewish people. When there are children that follow, children that come from you, Shekhinah Shora. Who did you want the Shekhinah to be Shora upon? If you're not bringing kids, then there's no one to pass on the torch to. So as it says the Gemara, Al Eitzim V'Alavanim. It's going to be that's not how it works. It has to be that one does every effort to bring children into the world, and in doing so, the Shekhinah can carry from one generation to the next. We'll stop right here, and we'll pick up again tomorrow night with a new Mishnah on Samach Daled. Wishing you all a beautiful night.